Hello, Facebook friends. It's time for another video blog from yours truly, Joe Caldwell. And there's a very sentient, emotion-inducing topic, baby boomers. And technically speaking, I'm a baby boomer, though I really don't consider myself one in that I was too young to be aware of Woodstock when it happened. I was too young to comprehend much of the countercultural and hippie revolution, Vietnam protests, and that stuff. I was a child, very superficially aware of these very integral events to hippiedom, ergo baby boomerdom. There's a term called Generation Jones for those born around 1958 to 1965, something like that, and I'm in that quote generation. No one, what the hell is Generation Jones? But nonetheless, this okay boomer phenomenon of the last year kind of points to the fact that my generation, or kids that grew up in the post-war boom, when America was apparently great, although it was very flawed, consumerism diluted culture, there are a lot of important things to point out. That my generation was the one that was put in front of the television set. We were fed TV dinners and junk food cereal. We're basically fed candy as cereal, and mothers became more independent. My mother was a suburban active woman that was a traditional homemaker who baked cakes and nurtured me and spoiled me in this affluent period. And I was in a white-dominated suburban region. I was in an area where we did have desegregation, and my elementary school had the first black students bust in 6th grade. So that, yes, I lived in a racist culture, and I was oblivious to this fact, while I was immersed in a racist culture. There are a lot of paradoxes. In the baby boomer era, there were commercials made by doctors saying, I smoke X brand of cigarettes. I was raised in an era where we had bomb drills that we prepared for the nuclear Armageddon, that we would hide under our desks, put our hands over our heads under our desks, and this is going to protect us from World War III when the Ruskies are sending nukes our way. President Kennedy's promise to send a man to the moon facilitated my education, because I was raised during the Cold War era, and we were in the real legitimate Cold War against the Soviet Union, and we did have a strong public school system. In my particular, I grew up in an affluent county in Kentucky, even though everybody thinks that we're walk around barefoot and we worship Trump and we're complete blithering idiots. But I did grow up in an affluent or suburban part of Kentucky. Had a good public school education. I didn't get participation trophies. Yes, I was spoiled, and my parents were from the greatest generation, God rest their soul. So we benefited from the fact that the United States won World War II, and we had a global financial system called Bretton Woods. There was a deal made in 1944 in New Hampshire, and there was an international gold standard. And the price of gold was fixed from the 1930s up to 1971, I think about $35 an ounce. And dollars could be converted to gold, so other countries can convert their dollars into gold. And what happened was that Nixon had to take us off the gold standard, and various crises happened in the 1970s to unravel the American hegemony, we will call it, and led us into this trickle-down economic period of the rich people controlling everything, and the middle class and the poor are getting screwed more and more every day. And so now millennials in this day who've suffered from what we will call neoliberalism, which started before Reagan. It started in the 1970s. And one prime example of neoliberalism, I think in 1977, it was the Youngstown steel tube. Basically, the American steel industry just started collapsing in the late 1970s, and we started outsourcing major industries even before Reagan. And so the great America that Trump and other people who wax nostalgic about it was being dismantled. And now, so millennials grow up not having experienced this bliss that I experienced from the great America. But I mean, this is the America where we thought Christopher Columbus was a hero. We had white, American, European centric history. All these, anything great done in history is done by white dudes, and we've been correcting that. So there are a lot of illusions and things that were fed to me, and they're being corrected now. And so obviously there's an enormous amount of resentment, which I totally understand, against boomers. Now, the one thing you have to consider that is when neoliberalism started kicking in the 1970s, baby boomers were the first people. They were the people working in the factories that are getting shut down. So baby boomers were being screwed by neoliberalism, the new world order of fat cat corporations dictating policies packaged as trickle-down economics, supply-side economics, and getting the government off your back. And so we had social welfare, which actually was successful in creating the largest middle class in world history from the 1940s up into the 1970s, which has been dismantled by trickle-down economics. So millennials are now been battered. You millennials and the younger folks are been screwed because we have welfare for the wealthy. We don't have welfare for the masses. And to this day, Fox News or right-wing media spew this trickle-down balderdash. So yes, there were hippies who became yuppies in the 1980s, or not was that the word yuppies, that became young urban professionals. And so not all hippies remained hippies. And so a lot of these ridiculous stereotypical narratives, they become truths in people's minds. Some people watch television in the 1980s, late 1980s. There was a show called 30-Some. It shows these yuppies and they're having fondue parties, and the limousine liberals came around. And so people like Rush Limbaugh and other right-wing spewers of narratives of their own variety, these morphed into or became augmented into Fox News. And so these conservative narratives that bash liberals, that bash liberals of all types, like in the term politically correct. And so we liberals we liberal boomers, we're preaching down and looking down on other people, and we use terms like basket of deplorables because Hillary Clinton and her husband Bill Clinton were, I guess, born 1946-ish. So this resentment against boomers in general, a lot of narratives have been created. The hippies became selfish, shallow, materialistic a-holes who are looking down. And so these are all stereotypes. And there's still plenty of hippies who are boomers. And yes, some of them converted into materialistic, capitalist pigs or whatever. So it's just a few thoughts on the top of my head. And I've been subjected to a few okay boomer retorts, minimal. But it's just something to talk about besides Ukraine. That's been my main focus the last three and a half weeks or whatever. I want to talk about something besides that. So you'll have a lovely Sunday. Watch some basketball. There's the women's and men's NCAA tournaments. There's stuff, there is some sunshine in parts of the United States. Go out, smell some flowers, do something shallow and fun, and get away from all these depressing topics. Have a great day.